Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am Ross Morasso here with my guest today, Annie Baker Atwood, who is a Reiki master. You can find her at redbootsreiki.com, Reiki being spelled R-E-I-K-I. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So good to be here again.
How's the new year treating you?
Beautifully.
So for everyone who's tuning in for the first time, tell us exactly what it is that you do.
I am a Reiki master, among other things, but for this purpose, I'm a Reiki master, and I am essentially the charging cord for your personal batteries. So just the same as you have a little battery icon on your phone and you kind of flip out if it's getting to 20%, you have little batteries inside of you going all through you, and I charge them up, but not from my source. I'm not a battery. I just charge your batteries. I'm your charging cord.
So how do I know if my batteries are full or not?
That is a really good question. And typically things are harder if your batteries are just drained. You feel irritable. You're going to feel not as fresh. If you're working out, kind of recovery takes longer. So if you think about going into a workout and you are just in tip-top shape, you stress out your body, of course, because that's the fun part about working out. But then in your recovery, you're able to get back to your regular level of energy pretty easily. And if you can't, it's usually because there's an injury that's draining more of your recuperative energies. So if you kind of go with that analogy, if you're not fully charged, you're probably operating at about 60 to 75% of your capacity.
So in essence, using another metaphor, the farther we get away from center or balance, the more work it's going to take to get back.
Yes. And fortunately, when you book a session with me, you just lie down, relax, and you let me take care of it. And I can tune you up pretty quickly.
Right. So walk me through that. Right. So I come in for a session. What do you got to do? You got to
you
slap your hands around my head, or what? What are we doing?
I hover. I wag my hands. My kids think it's really funny that I make a living of, waggling my hands. But if you were in person, you would come in and you would have to say hello to the dogs because, that's part of it. And basically, I need you to take your shoes off, but you lie down on my table, which has, a vintage flannel cover on it, nice organic pillowcase, and you just lie on your back, and I stand by your side, and I start kind of on your shoulder area, and I move my hands down your energy points, and it what I feel is kind of like putting my hand on a hairbrush. There's definitely a sensation of your energy cells coming up for what I call an energy drink. And then depending on how much of an energy drink you need would depend on how long my hands would hover. And
how do you know when you're done at a spot?
It's kind of like being done taking a drink from a water fountain.
Do the hairbrush sensations sort of dissipate a little bit for you, and that's how you know?
The rhythm changes. So, when you're really thirsty, you're like, really, you need a lot of water fast. And then when you're not so thirsty, you kind of are just sipping your water. That's how I know when an energy cluster is satiated, is the rhythm slows down.
So how many of these clusters do we have in our body? How many places do you need to hit?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. That's kind of like asking how many roads there are in the US. But we have the major systems, are 7 major systems, actually 9, because knees and feet are huge areas of energy congestion. And so I clear those. as well. But typically we talk about the 7 major chakras, but you can have energy clusters anywhere. Sometimes it's in your jaw. It's a lot of women carry stress in their jaw because they're kind of clenching their teeth because they want to say something and they don't feel it's appropriate to say. And so they all, spend more time on that area, but that's not necessarily a chakra. It's just where there's been congestion of energy. Athletes are going to kind of get congested in different areas. So
like depending on the sport that they would be playing?
Depending on the sport, yeah. And so an elbow might need extra, ankles might need extra, knees, shoulders. And that will typically somebody will say, oh yeah, I was sailing and it was really windy. And so my elbow is just sore. And I'm like, I noticed. And then we can, do a little extra energy on elbows or wrists.
Okay, so what about like the bottoms of our feet? Is there a chakra there, or is that just an energy source, cluster?
It's called your subfoot chakra. And it's super important because that's kind of an exit portal for your energy to clear. And kind of like pulling the drain on a tub. There's a really big difference between pulling a drain on a tub and watching the water go down than bailing it out. It's just much more efficient to watch all the water, go down the drain and have that swirly whirlpool. And typically the water or energy completely exits the tub very neatly. Whereas if you're bailing, scoop, toss,
right,
you're getting everything all over the floor. So one of the things to keep in mind is not only are you moving energy, but you want to return it to its source. So I can move water from one place to another, but have I exited that water? Because I don't have my water glass with me, but I can move water from this part of the table to this part of the table. The water hasn't changed. It's just moved.
Right.
And you want fresh water. So if you think about energy, you want to refresh with new, not just dump, new warm water into a cold bathtub. It's just not as efficient if you want, a warm bath.
Right, so let me ask you about this, right? So you're saying like new energy in, like I would look at that, like eating food, like if I was dealing with something physical, right? To try to get new energy in, nourishing the body or, what have you. So how does that work inside of Reiki?
So one of the things about nourishing is it's proactive. You're thinking about, okay, I need food in me. I'm going to take the food and I'm going to put it in me. And food always tastes so good when you're, just that perfect hungry.
Right.
So with energy, we want to make sure that we're recycling or removing the energy that needs cleaning, sending it back into the earth or the universe. Well, there's a lot of different ways of thinking about it. Emptying that bathtub and then refilling with fresh water.
So there's like a 2-step process. I mean, it's a multi-part process, but for me, at a high level, I'm hearing 2 steps. One is inside of our body, we have to, in essence, get the pipes unclogged so they can flow. And then I assume, head and then toe for my intake valve and then out through my feet.
Yes. And anywhere along the hose, it might be kinked, it might be clogged, it might be, so you want to make sure that the kinks and the clogs are removed before you try to get the hose to work.
So do you go one at a time in order? Or do you find yourself needing to skip around as the energy kind of gets moving?
I go in order. I may come back to a certain area, not in the major ones. So if you're going north to south on a highway, you go in order of the exits, right? You don't go, oh, I want to be on exit 5. Wow, now I want to go back up to exit 20. Now I want to go back to exit 4. You kind of get on the highway and you go in that direction. Some of the ancillary or side roads, those ones I will come back to see, oh, did we get that block?
And that's by feel. You can see which one.
Feel or pendulum. I lost my pendulum. I was really cross about that. But I have a pendulum and it goes in clockwise if energy is flowing properly and counterclockwise if it's not. And so I can tune into exactly where a blockage is.
Okay, so if I'm the one being worked on,
yeah, you're going to be asleep. You're not going to.
I was going to ask you, like, can I tell things are bouncing around in me, or that's it, or no?
It depends on how in tune you are with how things feel. I find the more I work with somebody, and I'll explain, oh, there's a blockage right here. I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder and your wrist. Here's my little person. So I might say, yeah, you know what? There's definitely a blockage here. And so I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder and your wrist, and we're going to move this energy. We're just going to create that a little electrical system. On that kind of level, you are going to notice, oh, yes, it feels better. And what I often see, especially if it's an elbow, somebody will kind of, do this motion of, oh, yes, now I have range of motion. Whereas, before they didn't have the range of motion. So you'll feel it.
With like the depletion of our batteries, or knowing like when we want to like re-nourish ourselves. So I could get that day to day, we got the grind, right? But can we sort of deplete ourselves through physical or emotional like trauma? Like, does that, let's say a bad breakup or a divorce or a death in the family, things like that, can that accelerate our getting out of balance?
Yes. So your body is pretty finely tuned in the most perfect way, and your body can't tell. This is interesting. Oop, did I lose you? Sorry.
Nope.
Your body can't tell if the stressor is real or perceived. It just knows that there's been a huge release of adrenaline. And so if you're imagining, if you're having anxiety over the future of what might happen, your body is releasing hormones physically, not energetically, physically releasing hormones that are depleting to the regular system of things. And so for the energy part of it, those are all collected in your adrenal gland, which is kind of in the back, in the middle of the spine. And so energetically, I go in and I clear it. And so sudden illness feels very different in clearing that stress than chronic stress. And that's the concept of, wet and dry in Chinese terms. So a sudden impact physically is going to feel very like heavy oil. And then as we release it, it actually, and I mean, it's not really there. I mean, it's really there, but I feel it, I don't see it. We were able to bring you back into balance, which is always the goal, is to get everybody back into balance. So when I am going through something really stressful, I make sure that I double up on my self-treatments. So last year I managed to, leave a career, move out of state, decommission a classroom, decommission an apartment I had been in for 7 years, and move somewhere new. So that was a lot. And there were certain days where I would feel pretty overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was going to do, didn't know what I was going to do for money. And on those days, you would find me a lot of times with my hands just right on my collarbone, because that was how I could re-energize myself. And just kind of doing a lot of breathing, doing a lot of journaling. Sometimes journaling is actually just lists of things to do. That's okay. Seeing something on paper. Oh, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this.
Let me ask you about that. So we come in for sessions with you. And for those of us who joined us in the middle here, I'm talking with Annie Baker Atwood. She is a Reiki master, and you can find her at redbootsreiki.com. So we come in for a session. Do you ever give us homework? What are things we can do in the meantime that can slow the bleed, as it were?
Yes. My sister's always like, need more homework. I'm like, yes. So when you have less than optimal heart and lungs, which is very typical in any illness, it's either respiratory or circulatory are two major illnesses. You really want to make sure that you are getting those pipes running continually. And so the best way to do it is you take one hand and you hold on to your wrist, and then the other hand goes onto your shoulder. And that way you're completing the circuit. Like
so.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just is very comfortable. So the meridians, which are the secondary pathways for your heart and lungs, kind of go down your arm and then back up your arm. And so by doing that, and making sure that you kind of hold your wrist or wash your wrists when you wash your hands, you're actually increasing the circulation of your heart and lungs. And so that might be one. Women who, are really clenching their teeth, I just have them do the face cradle. And I'll just say, just face cradle. 3 minutes. It'll make you feel better.
Watching TV or something.
Watching TV. You'll see a lot of people rest, their elbow on their chair and, kind of cup their face. I'll say, yeah, definitely, but if you can do 2 hands, that's even better. So wherever the specific energy that needs to get soothed, where it's ruffled, I will show specifically how I want their hands to just touch, hover, make sure that they feel it. Because most people don't come to me every week. It's usually, every 3 weeks, once a month. And so it's important to leave your client with something to do so that they feel like, oh, I can do this too. This isn't just something Annie does.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So people can find you at redbootsreiki.com, but you're in Blue Hill, Maine, right?
Yes. Yes.
So do I got to fly out there for you to work
You're
on
always
me,
welcome
right?
to. It's a beautiful area. But most of my work is via Zoom at this point. And so we would establish a connection where I'm making sure that you and I are energetically connected. And then that's giving me permission to work on your energetic system. Interestingly, you don't actually need to be involved, which freaks people out. I can do a session on you without having a visual, because energy is like that. It's just there for me to say, oh, yeah, I'm sensing that you need a boost right now. Let me do that. And so if I ever hear of somebody going in for a procedure, I'll always say, can I send energy? And they always say yes.
Why would you say no? Right.
Why would you say no? Exactly. Exactly. And so people find it very soothing. Just in some sense, just to know that someone is thinking of them.
All right. So let's say we're going to do this telehealth, I think, as they say in the medical industry, right? So would I still like lay down on my own couch or bed or something if we were going to do this video wise? I guess
I find that if you lie down, you're more likely to go to sleep. So usually I recommend that you just get comfortable in a chair and kind of relax, just be in a relaxed situation. I have given sessions to people who are physically active. And so that's a different kind of session. You would, so say you had, a big running race that you wanted to do. And you said, oh, Annie, can you do a constant stream during my race so that I can run most efficiently? That's going to, you're just going to run your race. I'm going to set up a time portal that says from when you start your race to when an hour after. So we really get the energy working towards helping you regenerate and recoup and all of those things after a race. I would have set up a little portal as to provide you with energy.
So I want to make sure that I'm hearing this right. So a marathon runner or something, like they're clients of yours. Mm-hmm. It's a competition racers, or heck, I guess even anyone that plays sports at a start and end times, so some sort of thing. And so they'll find value or improved race times or more energy or whatever while you're sort of working on them right in the middle of the race.
I can't claim improved times.
Well, what do they say? You know what I mean? Like,
they just feel better. They feel more confident. They feel really more confident. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the proof's in the pudding. I mean, they're the ones that get to say, right? I mean, they're the ones that had to do the race. So they can say, so it's worth it then sometimes, because you have multiple things going on here now, right? So I can be in my relaxed space.
Yes.
Where we're doing a formal recharge. And then there's also like in the middle of some sort of activity. Now, using my other examples of if I have to go do like a bad breakup and I'm the one going to initiate it, right?
Yeah, I did. This actually happened. I was getting my hair done, and the young man who was, taking my credit card and all of that, he was so stressed out because he had to go have the talk with the girlfriend and break up. And I was like, well, let me just charge you up before you go. And so, in 5 minutes, you could just feel his whole body relax. And he was like, I can do this. I know exactly what to say. Like all the knots of nervousness about how he was going to approach this event, just everything just straightened out. And the next time I went in, he said, that was the most helpful thing that anybody has ever done for me. Thank you.
I was going to ask you that. So this was somebody that you got the follow up on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was just something totally random where, how everybody talks at work. Oh, and I was like, I can just quickly run your energy and see if it helps. And he said it was very helpful.
So that was for his own confidence. So if only because curiosity and inquiring minds want to know, how did his girlfriend take it? Do you remember?
I didn't ask about that. I just asked about him.
Right. Yeah. Probably for the best that you didn't ask about this.
Right. I didn't need that part.
So we have a few minutes left. You have been doing this as your own business for a while. So briefly, I'm curious, with the red boots, why'd you get that name?
Because I always wear red cowboy boots.
Do you?
And so, yeah. So years and years ago, I read a story called Adventure Annie Goes to Kindergarten, and she wore her red cowboy boots as kind of her talisman of she was going to be sparkly and go-getters. And a little boy listened to that. He goes, "Oh, Ms. Atwood, you got to get you some of them red boots." And I said, "Okay." And so I did as part of the costume, and they were the most comfortable things ever. And so I started wearing them every single day. And it became this thing for the kindergarten girls that if they had red boots, they were more confident. And so it became the symbol of confidence and standing tall and just being a go-getter. And so when the idea of opening a business, which terrified me, someone said, "Well, what would you call it?" And I looked down at my boots and I said, "Red Boots Reiki," because that's my symbol of I can do this. And then it became this really cool thing because it's really easy to text RBR. And so that's how the clients would make an appointment. They'd say RBR, post-work Wednesday, ? So there wasn't this whole like elaborate, oh, you have to call the spa, you need to get all of that. And it was just very appealing to someone who wanted the service without needing to feel like it was spa related. And so that was how Red Boots Reiki was born.
Got it. Okay. So Annie Baker Atwood, thank you very much for talking to me today. I hope that I get to talk to you again because we didn't mention this, but you do group sessions. And so I'd like to have a conversation about how all of that works. Plus, there's all sorts of other things to talk about as we are sort of interacting with the universe. This is a rabbit hole that seems to go on for forever. So for everybody else today, thank you for tuning in. And I'll say one more time here that you can find Annie Baker, Reiki Master, at redbootsreiki.com. That's REIKI. Are there other places that people go to find you?
You can find me on YouTube. I do a quick Reiki to the rescue every week. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, beautiful. So thank you, Annie. It's a pleasure to talk to you as always. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I am Ross Morasso. Until next time.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.